Hi guys, my name is David and welcome back to my channel. Today I am going to be talking about a anthology collection I got in my most recent subscription box from Abominable, and that is Bitter Chills. This is actually a revised version. They did actually have an original version of this collection that was that was of the same name, and the difference between the two is that this has all of the original stories from that collection, but this is a expanded edition. So it has all of the original stories in here. So first off, it has a intro by J. Alexander. So because this is their holiday edition, and they have all the other stories in here. But these are all the expanded stories, so I don't know how much they expanded on them in this collection. And they also have a bonus material section, which pretty much every single author in this book has maybe 2 stories, so about 80% of them have a second story in here. The only one that doesn't have a second story and just has one, as far as I can remember, is this author called Monica Coboni. I probably butchered her name. And it also has a your acknowledgements page, a afterword by Christopher Badcock, which wrote 2. Not sure, maybe. I know he actually wrote one of the stories in here. Yeah, he wrote one of the stories in here as well. So he did the afterwards, and as I said, there is a acknowledgements section as well. And at the end of the book, it actually has a small section that has a brief biography on all of the authors. And at the end of most of these stories, there is Orphan Notes after the short story. So this is from the author, so it just tells you about what inspired them to write that story and the ideas that they had that inspired them, why they wrote it, and what it means to them, and all that type of stuff. Although some of the stories don't actually have author notes, but it is really interesting to read it after the story and to kind of get a insight into the mind of the writer. And at the start of all the stories, it does actually have a little watered coloured version of the picture. This is actually also new to this new release that came out this year, and it actually has a more black and white version of the same picture before the start of that story. So that's a really nice touch as well. I really like all the artwork, which I'm pretty sure was done by Jay himself. So that was a really nice touch. So for short story collections or anthologies, usually I go through these stories individually and I tell you what they're called, I tell you what the story is all about, and I give you a rating on all the individual stories. I'm not going to do this here. I'm going to be talking about the book as a whole. I am going to be mentioning some brief stories and ideas for these stories along this video. So, some people may pick this up thinking, oh, it's, all the stories in here are going to be about Christmas. Not all the stories in here are about Christmas, guys. Yes, Christmas is referenced, and some of the stories have got Christmas themes to them, such as a snowman that comes to life, not in a good way, and it also has a unusual Father Christmas that seems to be more along the lines of a homeless robbing person that invades somebody's home during the festive season. But don't think of this as a Christmas collection, guys. Think of this as a unique individual collection that you can read during the cold winter time. Think of this as a collection that you can read while you're sitting by the fire. It is in the evening There may be some snow coming from outside, and it may be a bit cold. You're wrapped up in your favourite blanket, and you've got maybe a hot chocolate or a coffee or a tea, and you're just snuggling up with a good book. This has a lot of them feelings to it. A lot of these stories are about the cold weather, and they have a very wintry feel to them. So don't go into this thinking that, oh, all these stories are going to be about Christmas. No, they're not, guys. This is more of a winter read. Hopefully that made sense. I just want to stress that because I know that some people may be disappointed if they go into this thinking that all these stories are going to be really heavily focused on Christmas, so I just wanted to get it out of the way. But this collection was a absolute joy to read. This is a absolute gem and masterpiece. This actually reminds me of why I like to read books by unknown authors, because if you go into like any bookshop, no matter where you are in the world, and you're looking at all the shelves of all the horror books, and you see all the big names such as Stephen King and Clive Barker and all them big horror writers, and you read this, and all these stories are from just ordinary everyday people like you and me, and they just happen to be writers that aren't fortunate enough to get their books on the shelves of bookshops. Maybe more independent bookshops, but definitely not the like the big chains. But it doesn't necessarily mean that they are bad stories or they aren't worth reading. Their stories. It doesn't mean that. It just means that they fly underneath the radar. But this is just a really unique collection that just reminds me about why I like and enjoy reading books from unknown authors. I mean, there was a author in this that's actually fairly known to me because I saw Nikki from Dark Between Pages doing a video on him, and his name is called Marcus Hawk, and he has 2 stories in here. And all the stories in here are really, really short. There are a couple of poems, like 2 or 3 poems. But yeah, this is really, really good. The stories in here, just to give you a flavour about what they are about. One of them is about a boy who was set on fire, and his friends kind of abandoned him and left him to die, and his spirit is walking the earth while his spirit is ablaze. And he's kind of like going to all their different houses and trying to, I wouldn't really say seek revenge, but that's what the story implies that this spirit is doing. You have a story where there's all these Viking spirits that are flying through the sky and collecting all lost souls during the winter time. So that was really, really good and really, really, really unique. I've never read anything like that before. Possibly one of my favourite stories in here is called The Cold, The Grief by Spencer Hamilton. And this is about a man who is grieving the loss of his dead son. And he's in a cabin and he's on a frozen lake fishing because he feels guilty because he's never taken his son fishing, even though his son kept on begging him to do it and taking him fishing. And he finds his son riding on the back of a giant fish, or what appears to be his son. So this is a really, really good story and I really enjoyed it. We have a story in here about a young woman who is being hunted down in a snowstorm, and it's kind of like Hunger Games, but not really. But she has a bow and arrow and she has to try to survive. So that will give you hopefully a taste of what the stories are all about. Some of them are longer than others, and I just want to also say that the illustrations that come at the beginning of the stories, they are only in the original stories that were in the original collection and expanded on in this version. But in the bonus material, there is no illustrations, so the illustrations kind of stop there, and there are no Orphan Notes in the bonus section. So yeah, hopefully I've done this book justice. I didn't really want to go in super depth about all these individual stories and give all the stories ratings, as I know that this book is a fairly new book and I didn't want to spoil it for anyone that's got it in their Abominable Book Club box or is watching this and wants to read this. And in my box it also came with a matching bookmark, so that was really cool. I used this while I was reading this. So yeah, I would highly recommend this to anybody that's into horror, that wants to maybe read something that's out of the norm, outside of the standards, usual suspects of horror. And for people that may be a bit nervous and wary about reading something from an unknown author. I mean, there may be stories in this book that you will like more than others. That was definitely the case for me. But for me, if I was to rate all these individual stories, I would have either give them a 4 stars or a 5 stars. You can actually get this book in a physical paperback, obviously. You can get it in hardback and you can get it on Kindle. So in case you're wondering. So that's it, guys. That is my review for Bitter Chills. Hopefully I've given you enough information to gauge whether you would like to pick this up. Once again, I would highly recommend this to anyone that's into horror and wants to read something a bit more unusual during this cold season. So if you have enjoyed this video, please give it a like, comment down below, subscribe if you want to. If you do subscribe, please click on that bell, as it will remind you whenever I upload videos, which are every Monday and Friday. I'm not sure when I will be uploading this video, as I want to get it out before Christmas Day. So it may come out today, which is a Monday. I think it's a Monday. I can't even remember what day it is, but I do know that today is one of my uploading days. But if it doesn't come out today, then it may come out on one of my non-scheduling days, but I wanted to get it out there before Christmas Day. Also, I will have a link down below to my Goodreads account in case you want to follow me on Goodreads and see what I'm reading. And with all that out of the way, have a Merry Christmas, read some awesome books, and I will see you all in my next video.